This show is about retirement planning, getting ready for retirement. You might be in your 50s, early 60s, saying, I'm just about ready to go. And then, boom, you get that phone call that throws everything out of whack. You get that phone call from a needy family member. Maybe it's an aging parent who just had a stroke. And now your trajectory for your retirement is going to change as a result of someone else. It's a tough situation to be in, one that no one really wants to be in, but inevitably a lot of my clients find themselves in. And we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to bring Tony Shore in, my co-host, because not only is he a great guy and a great co-host, he's also going through this right now. He's going through dealing with aging parents. I am too. And it's a tricky, tricky scenario. Tony, now you remember we've done shows on everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? Mike Tyson.
Yep.
And the three punches that I always highlight are a market correction, a health event for yourself or your spouse. But I throw that third one in, which is always the wild card, which was a needy family member. And so I want to talk more specifically today about aging parents, because this is something that 50 somethings and 60 somethings are dealing with. And the boomers, the boomers that are retiring now do have aging parents in their 80s. So this is not a light topic. It's not a fun one to deal with, but I'll just give a quick update on what I'm dealing with, and then I'll let you tell us what you're dealing with, and then I want to ask you a few questions. So for me, my mom died early at 72 and from cancer. And I always said, I always reference her because she's been on the show, and she said, do things while you're young and healthy because you just never know. And certainly that was the case with her. My dad is still alive. But he's in his 80s, so he's getting to the point where he's slowing down. And I have three brothers. I'm the youngest of four. He's getting to the point where we have to start thinking what's going to happen if he can't drive or he can't do the things he wants to do. Now, for you, you're an only child with two aging parents. Tell us what's the latest on your situation.
Well, yeah, my dad just turned 80 last month, and my mom, and he's not doing as well. He's living alone on the farm, insists on staying there on the farm where he grew up, I grew up, his dad grew up. So it's the family farm, but he's 80 and he's still driving, still gets up and down on his own, but he falls when he tries to get up into the tractor. He's hit his head many times. He's been in the emergency room quite a few times. We've tried to get people out there to help him. He doesn't like that. So I'm in this situation. And my mom, as you know, has Parkinson's, and she's in the end stages of Parkinson's. And it's pretty bad. She can't get around on her own at all. So she's in a full-time home. She gets great care there. And my dad goes and visits her every day or every other day. So that's good. But they need a lot of help. And especially after my grandfather died, because he had been doing fine right up until the time he died when he was 101. I mean, he was camping 2 months before he died. People can't believe it, but it's true. So he was kind of the matriarch, and then we had to deal with estate issues, and my dad's dealing with that. And my dad doesn't do electronics. He doesn't have a smartphone. He doesn't have an email address. I have to go down there almost every weekend to help him with banking and things like that. I have to take time off work to help my parents because I can't. It's a 3.5 hour drive. I'm an only child. So, if you're out there with 6 or 7 siblings, it may not be quite as bad. It's still tough, but boy, I feel for our listeners.
Problems at that point, though. There's other issues that come up with siblings.
Oh, I've met your brother. Don't worry. I understand the problems that you may have. No, I love your family, Dan. But yeah, that's it. I'm dealing with aging parents. I'm dealing with long-term care costs. I'm dealing with insurance issues. I'm dealing with their financial issues. And it's a lot. I will admit it's a lot.
Well, I have a bunch of bullet points or tips or keys that I want to go through, but I want to ask you this. If, if you could, or your parents could have done something differently before this point, I wouldn't say you're in a crisis mode yet. You're close. You could be real close, or you averted one perhaps with your mom. But what would you have done differently, or had your parents do differently, if you could go back in time?
I would have had them put more money aside, or had them have a special account or insurance to help with disabilities and healthcare issues like long-term care. Medicare, you just find out just how much Medicare does not take. They didn't save enough for retirement in the first place. Part of that's my dad's fault. He loves fixing up old tractors. So he spent, he was spending the money on tractors and things like that, and fixing them up. But he'd never get as much money out of them as he put into them. So it wasn't a money-making thing. But, you can't really stop him from doing that. So I guess what I would have done is have them pre-plan for long-term care, because the majority of people, as they live longer, need some long-term care. My mom had a little insurance policy that covers, like, I don't know, $200 a month, which is, if you know how much long-term care costs, that's like, yeah, that's kind of a joke, but it's something. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, I would have done that.
Planning ahead
For
for
planning
the
ahead is
financial.
the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's tough because like many, like with my dad, he was he was a not a financial advisor, a teacher. He was an English teacher at high school, but he also was a driver instructor. And the other day I was driving with him. I hope he's watching because this is funny, but we were driving somewhere and he was driving. And I look at him, I said, Dad, why are you speeding? Why are you driving so fast? And why are you up on this guy tailgating? And he stopped, he looked at me, and he said, I don't know. I don't know. Because he was always the guy that would be like 6 car lengths and, take your foot off the gas when the light turns yellow and coast your way up there, and so I'm dreading this idea of, Dad, you can't drive anymore. The thought
too.
is scary because he's going to resist. Your dad, hey, Dad, you got to come off the family farm. Sounds like a terrible conversation to have.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it's almost to the point where you want to have that conversation now, before the need comes, so that the wishes can be known. But problem is, your dad will probably say, "Well, I'm going to live and die on this farm."
He has said that. So,
You
and you
said
can't,
that.
and I think it's the wrong thing to do. As he gets older, he's losing some filters, and so he gets upset. He never used to get upset, even keel guy, but now he gets upset at little things. And so I think putting him in, we could put him in an apartment in the same facility my mom's in. He could have an independent living apartment or assisted living, but it would drive him crazy. He would not be happy. So what do? Do you let him live on the farm and risk him having an accident and something happening out there? Or do you say, oh, for your health and well-being, we're going to put you in there? But is it really, that's the problem. Is it really better for him? I mean, he wants to live and die on the farm. Do you let him, or is that incompassionate, knowing something horrible could happen? It's a tough spot to be in. But you're right. Planning ahead is one thing. And you said, Dan, I think on the list, what's something you can do if you could look back? What can you do to make the situation better? Is communication. I wish there'd been more communication about things.
And in my case, I put involve everyone.
Yes.
The communication with the aging parent is key, because you want their wishes to be known. Because maybe your dad would say, yeah, I don't want to die on the farm. I don't want to be alone on the farm.
Right.
And you go through life thinking, oh, he's gonna stay on the farm. He's not gonna ever leave. But if you ever sat and talked to him about it, which
right,
who wants to, right? But if you did, he might say, yeah, I don't want to be a burden. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I have with my dad. But I mean, I didn't until we realized there were problems. We should have done it all ahead of time when everybody was in their right mind. And by in their right mind, I'm talking about me, not my parents.
Well, you bring up a really good point, which is, what you do with an aging parent isn't all about what they want and need. It's also about how it impacts you.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that in a selfish way, but for you, especially as an only child who lives far away, who has his own family, and your wife's got an aging mother, right,
Yep.
nearby,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you have to stop work and shut down your life
Yep.
and not go do the jobs you have to do, not go do the things for your children that you want to do. You have to go help dad out because dad's decision to not have surrounded care or not have the financial wherewithal or capabilities to hire people to let him do what he wants impacts you. So there becomes this pull and push where it's like, I don't want to tell my dad he can't drive, and if I do, I'm going to have to drive him. I better have an alternative. Because it's such an amazingly difficult scenario, and it happens for a lot of my clients. And I don't have all the answers. I'm just talking out loud with you, and a lot of times I'm thinking, well, you mentioned it. Financial, it would have been better if they thought it through. Why not have the conversation early, involve everyone? So I have involved my brothers, right? Because they may have different.
You have to involve your siblings. I saw that happen with my dad's siblings when his dad finally got sick and passed away. So
you guys, do you know if your dad and his siblings talked about Grandpa Bob before he died? About like, hey, or was it, hey, he's still traveling at 100, he's driving the RV at 100, we don't have to worry about him? And then when it hit the fan, that's when they started talking? Or do you think that they had that conversation prior?
They had a conversation prior about estate planning, but it wasn't soon enough. And my grandfather was always a personal stuff like finance. He did not talk about finances with
close
anyone.
to the chest.
Yep, close to the vest, close to the chest. So he didn't talk about that with anyone until pretty late. I mean, I would say 99, 100, maybe a year before he died. He got together with he regularly met with his estate planning attorney, but I think he got together with 2 of his 4 children and discussed it with them and said, I'll make you guys the executors of my will.
Yeah.
But the other 2 were not involved. They never had a meeting with everybody. They never just sat down as a family and talked about everything. This was just like, what's going to be in the will? And that was it. So fortunately, he did not need a lot of long-term health. I think it was 3 months that he was in. He was only in hospice for maybe a month and a half or 2 months. He died of old age. The doctor said, there's no cancer, there's no major disease. His organs gave out. It's like, so that was unique. That's unique though, because that's rare, I think, for people. Yeah.
But involving all of his siblings probably would have eliminated some family drama, I'm assuming.
Yes, it would have definitely. You have to include everybody, even if one of those people is like, well, we don't, Billy's a little off, or
Right,
Billy is not responsible with money. We don't want to involve him. Nope, you got to have everybody at the table. I think that's my lesson that I learned. I would not. Yeah, I'm going to sit all my children and my wife down, and we're gonna get this straight soon.
And I think you making the point that you'll spearhead that, and I think you don't want it to be the other way. I'm not going to call my 3 brothers and hold a family meeting and say, what are we going to do about that? Because that's just another way to really cause some family drama with my dad. Because then we're going to approach him and be like, hey, Dad, here's what's about to happen to you. We are doing this. That's not the way to do it. It's better when it comes to the person themselves saying, hey guys, this is what I'm thinking. I want everyone to be on the same page. How can we make it work? I think that's the better approach. But that
Yes.
requires the person to plan ahead for themselves.
Yeah.
And you say you'll do it because you've been through it on the other end. You
Right.
wish your parents would have, or your grandfather would have sat down with your uncles and your aunt and your dad, and he didn't necessarily go the way you think, and you're learning from that. It's
Yeah.
always the people that come to me to say, hey, I want long-term care insurance. How much does it cost? What do we, I say, what makes you want that? Well, I just had to deal with my mom. That's the people that
Yep.
never had to deal with it. They're like, long-term care insurance or planning for that. Who needs that? That's
Right.
no, when I'm dead, the kids will
Yep.
figure it out. It's not when you're dead that we're worried about. It's
Mhm.
when you're alive and need help that we're worried about. And yeah. One other point I want to make, there's several points I want to make, but it's not just about the finances. It's the emotional and the time. For you, I'm going to guess that the money isn't as painful. I mean, it stinks to have to worry about money, right? But the money's not as painful as the time. Hey, we want you
Right.
to come visit. Why don't you come visit?
100%. The time and emotional impact of my mom and dad right now is extreme. There isn't much financial because my mom, they were at a situation where the state and Medicaid actually stepped in and they're helping pay for my mom's care. My dad inherited some from his dad, so he's got some money to live on there and Social Security. So we haven't been as financially burdened, but we spend a lot of money each time we go down there, but it's not significant. The money isn't the issue here. For us, for me personally, it's the time and the emotion of dealing with all this.
So,
It's very hard.
is there anything that could have been done differently to mitigate this problem you're having, time and emotion?
I don't know. We've
Um,
thought a bit about that. I don't know that. I mean, obviously, if we had the ability to live closer to my parents, they're not going to move. And we had already established our family here. So you don't think about that when you're young and establishing your family a lot of times. But the location is a problem, but I don't think there's much we can do about that. As far as the time, um, no, I mean, unless you can go back in time and tell my parents to have more children and to have a couple of really smart, responsible daughters is what we
Back
needed
to the
in our
Future Part
family.
5 or 6, that would be, hey, he's getting aging, and he's like, I gotta get
Yeah,
another kid in here.
yeah, we
Let me
gotta
have a
get a.
daughter instead.
I
They're
gotta
more
have I gotta
compatible.
have an older sister that lives stayed in Worthington right now is what I need, Dan. I mean, you want an honest answer? That's the best possible scenario for me. Would be an older, responsible sister still living in my hometown.
I
Beyond,
know exactly what you mean. I got 3 brothers. That doesn't seem to be helping with any of this,
no,
you
brothers
know?
don't help. Not to be sexist, but brothers don't help. And this is a tip of the hat to the females in the family because they are, and you look at the statistics. I read a statistic. I was doing another show with someone about estate planning, and the stats are amazing. It's usually, they've done all sorts of studies, and it's the oldest daughter who ends up taking care of the aging parents in almost every situation. And then it's like middle, then it's youngest. It goes in that order, or maybe it's oldest, youngest, and middle, I think. And the guys,
They're all at the bottom of the barrel,
yeah,
in terms of helping. And they'll, and, you know, I'm just thinking about with my brothers, it's like, yeah, I'll throw some money at it. Let's all pool our money and
yeah,
we're all in this together. We'll give our money. But when it's like, hey, time wise, well, you're closer, right? And so
sure.
the thought I had about that is, there's a lot of pressure on grandparents to change their living to be near the grandkids.
Right.
Um, and sometimes sometimes they get upset when when their children move away. You're taking my grandkids from me. And so there's that, but then it's also you're going to be leave me alone. And I see some of my retired clients saying, I think I want to move closer. I want to move here. Why? So I could be closer to my grandkids.
Sure.
And they might be saying closer to grandkids is help see them grow or help their children raise them. But it could also be, I want to be near somebody so that when I start to need help, I got family close by. In your case, do you have, and I'm not trying to get you all emotional here or throw you on the bus, but do you have any guilt that you did move away from the family farm because you're now struggling to be there? I mean, 3 hours is a long drive.
Yeah. Well, no, I really don't. I mean, I have guilt that I can't spend more time with my parents, period. But as far as location is concerned, my dad, his happy place is that farm, and I see that. I would never ask him to move from there. It's not, it just isn't something I would have considered for my dad. And for me, and my family, in order to have my family, I had to move, in my career I had to move. So I don't feel guilty about having my own life, but I feel guilty about my parents' current situation. So looking back, could I have convinced my parents when they were a little younger, before they got so bad, to move? Could my wife and I bought a house with a mother-in-law apartment where they could live, or a guest house? Maybe. Um, these are ideas that floated in my head, but we never talked about them. I'd say talk about those things earlier on, while they're still active when they first retire. And I think
Yes.
that's a key.
Again, planning ahead. Did you ever get to the situation where it's like, hey, Dad, I know you want to stay on the farm, but we're going to need to make some modifications to the farm to allow you and mom to get around in there?
Yeah,
Was that
we did
ever
that. My dad put in a ramp and bars in the bathroom,
okay?
took out doors so she could get through. So modifications were made, and then when she was there to help organize, there were cleaners coming out once a week and home health aides. And since she's
Okay.
not there to help organize that, it's been hard to get my dad, because they'll come out, the home health aide, and my dad will be in town having coffee or somewhere on the farm and won't be in the house. Well, we were here 4 hours and he wasn't here.
Right.
Well, he was, in some shed way in the back, just tinkering with something that whole
Right.
time. So that's this. I mean, I'm in a unique situation where it's my dad. He's just, it's not
You know
tough.
what?
There's not a
Everyone's
lot
got
I
that.
could do ahead for my dad, other than, force him into a situation where he wouldn't have been as happy, like move him in with us. I mean, we looked at those options, but you got to consider those options early and often. That's the
Yes.
problem. It's like voting,
If
early and often.
if your dad was involved in that discussion early, he could have voiced, "Hey, I'm no matter what, I'm not leaving the farm," and then you could build around that. Or
Yeah.
you could say, "Hey," he's like, "Maybe I would," maybe, and so, but you want to do that right. You want to do that ahead of time. And you mentioned you had some people out there to help with that. That's the other point I want to make is build a team. You're going to need the home health aides. You're going to
Yeah.
need the lawyer to do the legal documents. You're going to need a financial person to help with that. Eh, Building this team is important. And that could be also family members. All right, hey, you're going to be in charge of making sure mom's meds are taken care
Yeah.
of, or you're going to be the one to keep track of the bills so that nothing gets missed and we get a nasty gram about, the house in foreclosure. Um, Building a team is really important. It's even more important when you are in your shoes, which is distant and alone, right? You don't have a sibling right there that can just
Yeah.
run over and make sure everything's okay. You're going to have to pay some money to build a team, or maybe in the case of your old neighborhood is family and friends. It's more of a
Right.
takes a village type thing. Um,
Yeah.
I mentioned having a lawyer. I think you need to have those legal documents.
You got
Did
to do
your
that.
do your parents have that power of attorney, health surrogate? So if something
I got
happens, who makes decisions?
Yeah, after the whole thing with my grandpa, we got an attorney the beginning of this year. We got all that ironed out, thankfully.
And again, good for you for doing that. But it took a tragedy in the family and some drama for you to say, oh, we should do that. The question I have for you now, Tony, I'm just grilling you today. Do you have those documents for yourself so your kids aren't in the same spot that you're in now?
Good question, and we have an appointment with an attorney to get those written up. We do not yet. See, yeah, you got me on that one. Sarah and I were supposed to do it. Well, we were supposed to do it last year, and yeah, and believe me, I've got you getting after me about it. I've got another friend of ours who works in the financial industry, Jeff. You know Jeff up here. He's asked us numerous times, and I know it's an issue. So that is gnawing at the back of my skull. But you bring up a good point. You have to have it for yourself. I mean, we're part of that sandwich generation where my wife and I are getting older. I mean, we're still in our 50s, but you got to do it, right? I mean, as much pizza as I eat in a week, Dan, I mean, you never know when my health is going to go. I mean, right now you couldn't tell. I mean, I'm a picture of physical fitness. You know that.
I will say that you're ahead of the game and you've learned your lesson. And I'm hoping this conversation gives some people to think about. But I'm not surprised anymore. But the listener, you might be surprised at the number of people that come to me in their 60s or late 50s retiring, and they have zero estate plan. They have zero powers of attorney. They have nothing mapped out. They're like, oh, the kids will figure it out. You want to maintain family harmony, you get those legal documents in order.
That's the worst thing you can do. And you just said it, Dan, family harmony. Do you care about your family? I mean, sure, you're going to be gone eventually, but do you care about your kids? If you care at all about your family or children, you've got to have a plan in place, because I've seen the mess it can make. You've seen it, Dan, when people come to you in these situations. It will tear apart. You say, not our family, we're tight knit. My dad and his family and grandpa was the nicest, tightest family ever. And I saw that just, I was
implode
shocked.
On itself. Yeah. And I put that here. Be ready for drama. Even if you had the talk, even if you have all the legal documents in order, there's going to be drama for some reason. Yeah. And it might be, oh my goodness, I have to go help my dad, and I was supposed to take my wife to work, or the car broke down, and what am I supposed to do? I didn't, I'm going to get fired if I miss any more time at work. It's just little things that you think it's all going well, but just be ready for it. And again, it all comes down to pre-planning, because the fear of the unknown is what gets retirees tripped up. I don't know what the market's going to do. I don't know if I'm going to run out of money. I don't know what's going to happen down the road. But what you can do is say, if I have a stroke, if I can't do this, if I die, here's what I want to have happen. If I have to choose between staying on the farm or going into a facility, here's what I want, and here's why. Getting that conversation early, getting the documents in order will save some drama. But even with all your ducks in a row, there's going to be something. So just don't think the world is against you. So
yeah.
I appreciate.
There's always going to be Ed. I mean, there's always going to be.
There's always going to be that brother. There's always going to be that. There's always going to be that uncle, right? Yeah. That's somebody. There's always going to be something. So it's a major problem. Dealing with aging parents is something that can destroy family harmony, especially if you don't plan about it. If you don't think ahead, it doesn't become an inevitable thing to happen. Your parents are going to age, right? You can't avoid that. But what you can avoid is it becoming a crisis. And a crisis will occur when you don't plan. If you have a plan, then it's like, well, it's not a crisis. We talked about this might happening. We said we would do this. So let's just follow the plan. It's not going to feel good, right? No one likes to have health crisis or anything. But if you don't talk about it and then it happens, then it's a crisis. Then it's alarm bells ringing. What am I supposed to do? Who's going to take care of the dog? Like, think about the little things, aging
Yeah.
parents might have a pet. Who's going to take care of the pet? You don't think about these things unless you talk about them in advance and go through. And there's checklists online. If you have questions, you can email me. Tony and I are going to talk about this in the future because we're dealing with it. So it's front and center for us.
Yep.
We're hoping that you guys learn something from this. And Tony, I do appreciate your opening up and sharing your situation. I'm not making light of it. I know you are doing a great job with it. From any way you measure it, it's not easy. We used to talk about Grandpa Bob all the time on the show. We still do, right? We're talking about him now. And we laughed that he's going to live to 100, and he lived past that. And
Yeah.
But now we're on the next generation. It's like, it's not as smooth sailing. So
no.
We'll see. So good luck, and everyone with the aging parent. If you have tips or ideas, please comment in the YouTube section here on the comments. We'd love to hear it, and we'll do more shows about what people say. So thanks for a good show, and I'll see everyone next week.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.